What's up, boys?
Woo-hoo.
Happy freaking New Year, gentlemen. It's another episode of the Blind Pig Podcast, courtesy of bgobsession.com. Before we get rolling in the particulars, please hook us up with a like, a share, and a follow. If you have any trouble finding us, you can catch us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all audio podcast platforms, youtube.com, all of that, and of course, at bgobsession.com. So, gentlemen, just how we expected it. Overtime win. Another rabbit out of a hat on prime time. First thing I'll say before we can talk about it. Let me say this though Penix did not look like he was starting his second game. He had a couple of errant throws. He had a couple clutch throws that I was like, oh, this guy's got something. I think if he plays 10 to 15% better than he did, they beat us. And you know what I mean? There was a couple errant throws that changed the game. But that kid put on a show. And the future looks bright for him at quarterback.
Yeah,
even though he throws with the wrong arm.
I don't think he warranted the gushing that was going on by the commentators, but I thought he looked better than I thought he was going to look. And it really, to me, the second half, it's kind of a tale of two halves for me. They ran all over us in the first half, 6.3 yards per carry, 82 yards for Bijan Robinson, and 2 touchdowns. And then the second half, I won't say we shut them down on the ground, but we pretty much made them have to go to Penix at that point because they only averaged like 2 yards a carry, another 25 yards on the ground in the entire second half. Hell, we didn't give them the ball in the third quarter. And that was just an incredible display. And I'll keep saying it. I think we have the best second half coaching in the NFL as far as adjustments, because in that first half, I was like, we cannot beat them with the way their defense is playing and our inability. Terry could not break loose. He was getting blanketed by Terrell, and we could not stop Robinson to save our lives. And I just thought they were just going to hand it off to Robinson over and over again. And I saw a lot of people say, why didn't they? Well, they didn't because he got stuffed. Like the first 5 times they handed it off to him in the second half, we were not having it in the second half. So they had to let Penix take, kind of carry the load. And he like you said, Derek, he did a good job. He gave him a chance, made some plays. But, hey, look at our background tonight. They had no chance. Ultimately, they had no chance because we got fucking Superman on our roster, you guys.
You're not wrong. JD took the game into his hands, and I think he is over the last couple of weeks. I will say I saw a stat that he thrown 7 picks in the last 6 games. I mean, which is still how many of those have we won and we're on the way to the playoffs? So statistically, who cares, really? But I think what it means though is that he is pushing the envelope a little bit more than he did before. And it's him still. He's getting more and more confident. But I think the biggest thing isn't the 7 interceptions. I'd like to go back and see the drive chart that follow the 7 interceptions. You know what I mean? Because I can bet you we put points up on all 7 drives following an interception from him. You know what I mean? Like maybe 1 or 2.
He threw an interception on the 3rd drive, and the 4th drive was 4 plays and a punt. 5th drive was end of half. 6th drive came out of halftime, and we went and scored a touchdown. This was Sunday night. I don't have the rest of the games in front of me, but I do have the drive chart for Sunday night up here on the second monitor. So,
but
yeah,
he doesn't get defeated by an errant throw.
What did you guys think, man?
I was impressed with Penix, and I agree with your assessment if the game goes exactly the way the game went. Here's the thing that stood out with me more than I don't know if I'm going to pick a negative that stood out for me more than anything else. This game should have been out of sight by halftime, and it wasn't because we played sloppy football. And it was horrible the penalties are just killers on offense. They really are. They're just killing us on offense. And I posted this in the forums, I guess yesterday, maybe. If we play clean football, we can play with any team in the league. If we play lousy football, the worst team in the league can make it an exciting game with us. Daniels, amazing. Zach Ertz looks like a 24-year-old kid out there these days. It's kind of amazing. I mean, a couple of those catches he made, very athletic for a football player of his age and mileage. He's been hit a few times. I'm also a little worried about the running game outside of Daniels. I mean, he's now our leading rusher on the year, is he not?
I wouldn't be surprised.
He got to be close.
If Paul's shaking his head yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So, I'm a little worried about that. But, man, to clinch with a game left. When was it? I know there's a lot of talk about when was the last time we won 11 games? When was the last time this happened? When was the last time that time? Here's my question. When was the last time we made the playoffs with a game to spare? And I'm guessing it was 91.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's that's definitely something that's not hard.
The one-off years we would make it in between. It feels like we had to go on some stupid run.
Right. And get help. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it was in our hands. We went out and took care of business. That feels really, really good. And it was a little exciting the way it happened. I got to admit, it was fun. It wouldn't have been fun if it hadn't worked out. but the way it worked out was kind of fun, even if it was nerve-wracking. Maybe fun because it was nerve-wracking.
But to that point, Bob, as a bigger picture, it keeps finding a way to work out. I mean, and I saw somebody go back and say, of course it was an anti-Commander post where they were like, one Hail Mary away from 10 and 6, one dropped ball by Devontae Smith from 9 and 7, one dropped ball by Malik Neighbors from 8 and 6. But it's at the end of the day, guess what? Enough was done to be there when we needed to be there. And then especially in the situations when JD5 has the ball in his hand and is the one who, he puts it on his shoulders and he makes the play. There are a lot of things that have happened this year that you could say are borderline puck luck, right?
For every team, Derek, for every NFL team.
Yeah.
Well, normally we're on the other side of it, right? Normally, how many? We talked about it before we started recording. How many times we all dread prime time? Why? Because we either lose 41-10, or we lose on a Hail Mary, or we lose in overtime, or we lose on a failed 2-point conversion, or 100 different reasons why we don't like prime time. Well, we played in prime time twice this year. Twice, 3 times
at least,
and one was a Hail Mary victory. The other one was this past weekend to win, to lock up a playoff spot in overtime. So
I want to ask you guys a question along those same lines. What did you think when they came back and tied the game and almost won it, if not for a short, field goal attempt? How many? What were your guys' thoughts going into overtime? And then I'll tell you what mine were.
For me, I was just everything was on the coin flip because I figured if we got the ball, I was like, we're gonna win. There's no doubt. We're just gonna drive and score a touchdown. So I was a little nervous if Atlanta would have got the ball first, but once we got it first, then it was like it's a wrap. We're gonna win this game.
How about you?
I'm not going to lie. Ghosts of Redskins past certainly creeped into my thought process, especially when we had the ball up 21-17. We had a 2nd and goal from the 1, and we ended up squandering that opportunity, and we had to kick the field goal there. We had that touchdown called back on the penalty, on the holding call on Cosme. Yeah. Right at that point, I was thinking very, very bad things. And in the back of my head, I was saying, I don't know how I'm going to get myself through this next week, because this would have been an excruciating, painful loss had things not materialized the way they did in overtime. But yeah, it's hard to break those. It's hard to break those patterns still for me as a Redskins fan. I have major scar tissue from what we've endured over the last 32 years. So it's nice to see that things are starting to break our way. And the thing that I keep reminding myself about is we have an absolutely fantastic player behind center, and I truly believe that guy is going to save this franchise long term.
Bob and Derek, what about you guys going into that overtime?
Similar to Tony. When we won the toss and got the ball, I said, you know what? It's almost sad to say, all right, go get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like when Jayden threw the interception last week and they only got a field goal against the Eagles, and we got the ball back with a minute and a half, it was, oh, we've got time. Here we go. You know what I mean? Make a play. It was a similar feeling. Say, okay, we got the ball. Jayden's going to have the chance with the ball in his hand. I guess I was confident that we were at a minimum, we're be setting ourselves up to make a game-winning play. You know what I mean? So it's weird to feel this way. You know what I mean? Like that when it feels like our backs are against the wall and this is a do or die, that you actually feel confident that when we have the control of the ball, that we're going to be able to get it done.
I actually felt worse when we had to settle for the field goal late. That's when I had my moments of Washington PTSD, angst, whatever you want to call it. My, oh shit, here we go again moment, right? They scored the touchdown and then Cosme gets called for the hold. Second time in the game he gets called for that kind of a hold, and it's pretty obvious when you're pulling a guy down like that. I mean, Cosme's too smart to do that, but boy, it just, so they take 7 off the board and have to settle for a field goal, and I thought, yeah, here it goes.
Well, to be fair to Cosme, the first time they flagged him for it, it was blatantly obvious that the guy just tripped over his own feet and fell on his face.
Felt like first, I want to talk about the penalties, but I felt like the first one was bullshit. The second one, he did it, and he did it in like a crucial moment.
Yeah.
And like the people that are beating on Zacchaeus, who really, that kid was a player of the game, man, other than Jayden, the obvious pick. He had 8 catches, I think, and he really should have. People are like, well, he let one go through his hands. Yeah, he did. It happens. He also had a touchdown catch negated by a penalty. So anyway,
by the way, that was the only ball he missed that night.
Yes.
He was 8 receptions on 9 targets. I'll tell you what, almost any receiver in the NFL would take that day. 8 on 9 for 85 yards and a TD. Should have been 9 on 10 for, I don't know what, 95 yards. What was that, about a 10-yard TD? Yeah. 95 yards and 2 TDs.
So going into that overtime, all year long I've been beating on people like, you've got PTSD. Like, this is a new regime. Get over it. Like, stop being so negative. Man, I put my phone down. I put my laptop away from me in that overtime. And when we had the penalty on the very first play of overtime, I don't know who it was. I think it was like another holding penalty or whatever it was. I'm like, there is no way. This is just going to be like, we flipped the script in the second half. We pretty much won every category, including dominating a third quarter, like probably the biggest domination of a quarter I've seen in my adult life watching Washington football. And we're going to lose because of a couple fucking mental mistakes. And I should have known, though. So I was right there with Paul. I was like, maybe, and I think I was just kind of steeling myself for like massive disappointment. But I thought about it later on, and I'm like, I predicted we were going to thump the hell out of the Falcons last week. And obviously I was totally wrong on that. But I should have known, like, look, they're a pretty good team. They've got a good coach. They've got some talent on that roster, and they're playing for playoffs, just like we are. I should have known that it wasn't going to be a cakewalk. I wasn't expecting all the mental mistakes, and I hope we're doing something about that. Some of them, like I said, one of the Cosme ones was bullshit, but like the false start penalties, just the kind of knucklehead stuff, we're not good enough to overcome those in most games. So I hope they can figure out. I guess we have a lot of players subbing in. That's kind of what I tell myself is we got the O-line is like a patchwork right now. So you can't really blame like Michael Dieter for fucking something up when he barely knows the plays. And we have
the sad thing is it was mostly Cosme. It wasn't even Dieter.
Right. Oh, I know, yeah. No, I know. And I mean Cosme's he's like Zach Ertz, man. He's either like on your hero list or he's doing something stupid. That's kind of how I feel about Ertz. And I'm not going to talk about Ertz in anything but glowing manners after this game because that was incredible. But
Ertz even got yards after catch on the play, like over the middle. He got like 12 more yards. So I was like, wow.
I mean, but to me, the whole story of the game, I do want to talk about like who else stood out because I think a couple guys did stand out other than Jayden. But that is the first time in my adult life since Doug Williams in that crazy quarter of football he played where I just saw maybe Mark Brunell in the Monday Night Dallas game where a guy just took the damn thing on himself and made the win happen. Because he flat out on that last drive, it was, I'm not saying guys didn't make plays, but it was all Jayden, man. Oh my God. And they could not stop him. They knew what he was going to try to do, and they could not stop him. Unbelievable.
We haven't seen a player capable of doing that since RG3, his rookie year, and he only had a couple of games like that. Daniels feels like he could go out there every week and do it if it wouldn't put him in an ice bath for a month. If there's anything I'm worried about this week, it's how much time he's had to spend in recovery because he took a couple of real shots. I mean, he's a slippery dude. He's a slippery dude, and he did a really good job of not taking anything square. But boy, there was one down there on the goal line where if he weren't part Gumby.
That was the play, Bob. That was the play before he threw the touchdown pass.
Right. You've probably seen the replays of him on his heels and Marcus Mariota coming out there and going, "Hey man, stand up so you can catch your breath. Come on now just go do what God's giving you the ability to do."
I thought that was cool as hell. I've seen some people like kind of making fun of that, but I thought that was cool as hell because what he was saying is, get up, you'll breathe better, man. You catch your breath better. Stand up, take a couple deep breaths. You got this. I mean, I just thought that was like that was the most professional thing I've seen in a long time. I love that.
Mm-hmm. My impression the first time I saw it was this is veteran savvy. This is a guy that's been there and he knows what Daniels is feeling and he knows it's going to be better if Daniels stands up. He's going to recover a little quicker. And I thought it was great, for him to go out there and do that. Brilliant stuff. Part of what this team is about, right?
How Jayden Daniels is the one when you have Robert Griffin III falling over himself in like incredible praise for the guy and like talking about how because this is the exact opposite of everything Robert typically focuses on, which is Robert. And yet that's not what you're hearing from him. He's like, oh my God. And especially when it's his records that are getting broken. But all I've heard from him is, oh my God, this guy is the real deal. He's doing things that no rookie's ever done, including him. And I just think that tells you how obvious it is that he's the real deal.
And just to tack on to that, John, one of the coolest things that I heard this week, and I can't remember who said it, but they were talking about basically Jayden Daniels and his ability to be such a clutch performer. Like we heard about the whole thing about, hey, he's got, I think, 5 touchdowns in the last 30 seconds of ball games at this point in the year. And I think 12 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They were making a comparison and saying that he is like a Tom Brady in that sense, but a Tom Brady with skill. I thought that was one of the coolest things that I've heard in regards to Daniels. Like they were just gushing over the guy.
The other thing about Daniels is, how scared were you guys when he got folded backwards and kind of rolled up? Talk about being part Gumby, Bob. I saw that happen, and luckily my brain didn't move fast enough to register it because he was already getting up and moving before I had a chance to start to panic attack. But Jesus,
Yeah, that was scary.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, because you see that all across the league, like at any position, when a player gets rolled up on from behind and their leg gets, So that was definitely.
I had the panic attack, Derek. I started to hyperventilate sitting on the couch. I mean, it was in. I don't know what my immediate reaction was, but whatever it was enough to make my wife look up from whatever she was doing. And my wife, I don't guess we've ever talked about this. My wife is a physical education major in college, right? She's been a physical education teacher for years. She's been through all the trainer stuff, worked with teams and whatnot years and years ago. She hasn't done it recently, but she looked up just in time to see the slow motion replay. And her first words were, "I don't know how he got up."
mm-hmm.
She said,
And the wild thing is as I don't want to say recklessly, but as aggressively as he plays, and as much as that was in the pocket behind the line of scrimmage, completely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just in the
you know what I mean? Like, and this is the argument where you go back and forth with people. He's a running quarterback. He's going to get hurt. Well, if that would have ended his season,
yeah,
he wasn't running. You know what I mean? Like, woo!
There are plenty of non-running quarterbacks that get hurt every year. So
right,
he not only is he a running quarterback, he's a running quarterback that is now stiff arming guys. I mean, I heard them talking about that on like Good Morning Football. He's like it. There were several runs in that game where he like either threw guys to the side and gained another 5 yards or stiff armed them. I mean, the guy has no fear. And Paul, I was going to jump onto something you said. Tony Dungy was asked, they were trying to give comparisons. Who's he like? Is it Lamar Jackson? Who is it? And he said, "I'll tell you who I think who he reminds me the most of, Joe Montana." And I thought, oh,
wow.
I don't know that Joe Montana ever ran like him, at least athletically, but I think the coolness and the being able to create something when it doesn't look like there's anything there.
Well, and to be fair, isn't Joe Montana the one, the John Candy comment, right? Isn't that Joe Montana in the Super Bowl before they go on not the Super Bowl, before they go on the drive to beat the Browns, right? They're in the huddle. There's like less than a minute to go, and he looks up in the stands and he goes, "Hey, I think that's John Candy." And at that point, all of the guys in the huddle immediately exhaled, you know what I mean? And then the drive came from that. That was part of the drive that is noted. So
I think he threw us all off with throwing a John Candy out there. Like, what? John Candy?
Yeah. Sorry. But it's that dynamic, that cool, that calm, that moment that is never too big. And he's just out there having fun, even when he gets pinballed around. He gets up and he looks at the defender like, "You got me." You know what I mean? Like,
there was a shot. I want to know if you guys caught this. There was a shot on camera right before overtime and I don't know. I would love to know who Jayden was pointing at, but Jayden is sitting on the bench. Overtime hasn't started yet, and he just has this look on his face, and he's pointing across the field at somebody, and I mean, it basically says, "Here I come, get your ass ready." I mean, that's what it looks like. I just
love it.
love that, man.
If you guys have the opportunity to go back and catch some of the reaction videos from Monday, I highly recommend. Rich Eisen's got a 10-minute video out there as part of the Rich Eisen show about Jayden Daniels' love, and he says the same thing that K-Dog has said multiple times on this pod in the last couple of weeks, that Daniels should probably be part of the MVP. Not rookie MVP or rookie offensive player of the year, but part of the MVP conversation for the league. But he's got this great, he goes, he's even calling his shots as he runs out of bounds now. He goes, he's just kind of sashaying. He's like, I haven't. And he stopped and he went, he's as cool as the other side of the pillow. Because Monday was like the 10th anniversary of Stuart Scott passing, right?
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, as my late friend would have said, he's as cool as the other side of the pillow. He's like, go back and watch him running out of bounds. He picks up all the yards there are, and then he kind of sidesteps around guys with a big cheesy smile on his face. And I know exactly the play he's thinking about. It's like a 19-yard scamper out and around the end and down the sideline, and he weaves around a couple of guys, and he's about to take this massive hit. And he calculates, you watch him calculate the distance. He takes 2 more steps and then just slips to his right out of bounds, flips the referee the ball and back to the huddle. And it's like, oh my gosh, any other quarterback in the league would have just gotten hammered. And Daniels figures a way to just do what he does. I was like,
So
I like
ahead.
how he's always smiling as he's talking shit to the other team, and then he proceeds to dice him up, and he's like, it's great. And then even after the amazing comeback and touchdown pass, he's just like, okay, this is what I do.
So I try to do this every week. I want to run through a couple of nuggets, courtesy of the Commanders media site. I won't run through all 6 pages of them, but these are kind of records or things that haven't happened to Washington franchises in a long time. Obviously, it's the first 11-win season since 1991. We talked before about how a lot of the records that are getting broken this season date all the way back to 1991, which, by the way, we know what happened in 1991. We're 8-3 versus the NFC, which is the best record since 2005, 5-1 at home against NFC opponents, which is pretty incredible. We set a single season franchise 4th down conversion record with 17, and we're not done yet. We're 4-0 in December, the best since 2012. We've scored 439 total points so far, which is number 4 all time for Washington, and we still got a game to go. 2,506 rushing yards is 4th all-time record for Washington franchises. 6,015 total net yards, the 5th best all-time. Most wins in a season for a first-year Washington GM, Adam Peters, with 11 so far, and we're hoping it's going to be more than that. But I mean, this is year 1. I know we keep saying that, but I just don't think we can really appreciate what they've done in one season. Even with, I mean, it's not always been pretty. We got some guys out there playing. We got guys playing that can barely play at some of our positions. I thought Drake London. I thought they were just going to throw to Drake London the entire second half.
They should have,
because they were eating that defensive back alive, the poor guy. But anyway, I just think it's amazing. That's probably 1/10 of the records that we've broken this year so far. I just didn't want to go through all of them.
You know, speaking of the defense, this question started bugging me during the game. I felt like this coaching staff did to Mike Davis what our coaching staff last year did to Fowler in that game against the Eagles, where A.J. Brown was just eating him alive. They just left Davis out there, and Drake London. If they had just thrown the ball to Drake London in the second half, I think Atlanta has a pretty solid shot at beating us. Because
I mean,
Mike
I
Davis
guess the question is Who did they replace him with? St. Just?
Is St. Just
Canadian, you gotta
really
put
so
St. Just.
bad that he's not above? I was watching Davis get eaten alive, and I was like, "Come on, man!"
It is Drake London. It is Drake London. I mean, I think you have to keep that in mind.
It is, but dude, I've had Drake London on my fantasy team the last 2 years. I'm not convinced he's all that in a bag of chips yet.
Well,
the dude is brilliant at contested catches, but I'm not sure he's brilliant at anything else yet. So
one thing to touch on, John, you were talking about all those records, and I do want to say I'm gonna be a little bit of a negative Nancy here, but what does that say about our offensive production over the last 35 years? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry,
not wrong at all. I don't think that's negative.
I love what we're doing, but we're not even close to talking about league high performance. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to what we're doing, and we're just now breaking franchise records, and it's more of a window into saying we finally found ourselves in the current NFL. You know what I mean? Like, we're finally putting ourselves on the NFL map, because for 30 years we've been so far behind the 8 ball offensively that it took this long, and now we're finally getting up to speed with forward-thinking offensive play calling and adapting the entire offense to the talent of your team, instead of trying to fit, rectangular pegs into triangular holes. That this is what can happen, and it's awesome to see it. Our defense needs help, and I don't care what anybody says. Our defense needs help. We gave up 30 to the Falcons. We gave up 33. So while we've won the last 2 games, we've given up over 60 points in the last 8 quarters, right? Like 8 and an overtime technically. So, but offensively, we've scored that much more to be able to take home the dubs. So it's just awesome to see this group and this offense be able to say, you know what? We can drop 30 when we need to drop 30. And not only can we do it, we can control the ball to John's point in the third quarter. I think the Falcons only touched the ball for 3 plays in the entire quarter, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
We can play ball control, but then when it comes down to it and we're behind by 4 against the best defense in the NFL, we've got the ability to dictate to them what we're going to do, because we have a weapon and a cheat code at quarterback. And it's just fascinating to watch it happen, and it's cool as hell. And
Derek, you mentioned cheat code. I just got to say, because I've not heard anyone else out there. I've heard every other descriptor of Jayden Daniels, but we got to do a T-shirt. We got to do another T-shirt that says
he's a cheat code.
Cheat code. Hashtag cheat code.
Yeah, up, down, left, right, start, squared.
Yeah. Get a little Nintendo controller on there.
He is absolutely a human cheat code.
He is Bo Jackson in Tecmo Bowl, right? Like, he is like, you're not supposed to be that much better than everybody else on the field. But then he just decides, I'm gonna run, and he's breaking tackles from defensive ends that outweigh him by almost 100 pounds, right? Like, these guys almost have him and he is breaking tackles, eluding the pocket, and still having the wherewithal to. There was one play he broke out, and he could have run for 15, but instead Ertz was right there, and he hits Ertz for 19, right? Like, he does not rely on his ability to run until he needs to rely on his ability to run. And that is one of the
I don't mind the
things
Lamar Jackson comparisons, as long as you're comparing him to Lamar Jackson now, not when Lamar Jackson was a rookie or a second-year player, when all he did is run. He's Lamar Jackson, like, already.
Yeah.
The advanced version of Lamar Jackson, who does look downfield.
I heard earlier this year, I heard an announcer compare him to Jackson, but it was one of the color guys. But he caught himself, and he said, I want to be very clear here. He reminds me a lot of Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson was a run first, pass second quarterback when he came into this league. Jayden Daniels is the other side of that coin. He is a pass first, run when he has to quarterback. And he said that is something it took Lamar years to learn how to do that. He said his first couple of years, he was one, maybe two reads and gone. If his primary guy and his secondary guy were covered up, Lamar was looking for daylight. He said, Daniels is looking for his third guy, his fourth guy. He said, if there's no pressure, he hangs around back there and waits for somebody to get open. He said, that is not something Jackson ever would have done as even a second or third year player.
And the only reason that Jayden Daniels led all rushers against the Falcons is because there was no one to throw to other than Zacchaeus. Really. I mean, occasionally Zach Ertz, but oh my God, Terry McLaurin, man, that's probably the best job covering a really good wide receiver that I've seen in a long time. He had one, I think he had the one catch, but he had one route where he ran and there was like a little tiny window where Daniels could have gotten it to him, but it was just so tight. There was just no way. I've not seen that job that Terrell did on him. That was a masterclass.
I think Philadelphia did a better job, but it was layered. That is the best job of one-on-one. I mean, it was basically just he and Terrell. I didn't see a safety over the top, or it was. They just looked at Terrell and said, "Go get him. We're going to worry about the other guys. You worry about him." And Terrell just kind of took him out of the game.
Yeah, and to be fair, sorry, go ahead, Tony.
I was going to say, I think that makes the win even more impressive, and Jayden Daniels even more impressive. You take away far and away our best weapon, and he finds OZ. He runs, he scrambles, and we still win despite Terry not being able to perform and all the injuries on the line and everything. So I think that just
and they took Ryan Robinson out of the game.
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar to Tony's. What it did is it created opportunity for a guy like Zacchaeus, right? Like nobody, if you would have had the betting odds that Zacchaeus would be the leading receiver in the game, right? If I'm not mistaken, on both sides of the field. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about a field that has Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz, who's an obvious check down, Drake London, Kyle Pitts,
Darnell Mooney,
and you're going to tell me that Zacchaeus is the guy that's going to lead the game in receiving? Nobody's going to pick that. Robinson. And Bijan Robinson, So when you look at like that and you say, okay, take away Terry, guess what we'll do? Now get a legit number 2 in there and let's see what can really happen with this offense.
It's not just the wide receivers. Like I was going to just throw out there, Chris Rodriguez. I mean, I don't want to beat on Brian Robinson because I don't know if B-Rob's healthy. I don't know what else is going on with him. And I know he had that terrible game against Philly, and he's trying to bounce back, but he just didn't look like himself in that game against the Falcons. But I felt like Christopher Rodriguez, even though he didn't have a ton of opportunities, every single time they called on him, he made a big play. And I just think you have to have that, man. You have to have those guys that can jump in there. And the other team is like, who is that? What's that guy's name? And they still managed
role players stepped up. McNichols had that max effort fourth down.
The leap, right? The lunge forward.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
We needed that.
Where he caught the ball and kind of turned and just kept enough feet to get a dive to convert it. Yeah.
Yeah. In the red zone, Bates had that like monster collision catch where he like he felt like the earth moved when he tackled when he hit the defender. And even Dieter just coming out just in game having to play center, and Trent Scott, our fourth tackle, had to play for most of the game. So a lot of the role players for this game, stepped up.
Well, and that's another thing that I don't think enough people are talking about, and with my fears, like, oh well, we held on for dear life against we won the fucking game and we did it against all odds. Okay.
Hey, so Derek, I got one comment. I started to make it earlier. You brought the subject back up, so I'll drop this. Kansas City is 15-1. 10 of those games are one-score games. They are one play away in 10 games from being a whole lot worse off than 15-1. So I don't want to hear about, oh, you won by one, you had to go to overtime. The best team in the league is just getting it done when they have to. We just got it done when we had to get it done. And that's what good teams do.
Yeah, and the fans that are making that argument, you know why they're making that argument? Because their teams haven't done those things.
Correct.
Yeah,
That's not out how that goes.
exactly.
And the flip side of that as well is if you look at our losses, our 5 losses on the season, 4 of them have been 1-score games. So technically, if people want to play that game, we can argue that we're potentially a 1-loss team on the season.
Yeah.
We've been there in every game outside of the Tampa Bay game, and that was week 1.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And against some really good teams.
So I don't know if you guys know this or not, but under my name up here, you'll see it says "We going." We are going to the playoffs one way or the other. It's just a matter of whether we're a number 6 seed or a number 7 seed. So we got a game against the dreaded, Dallas, who we lost to in week 12, 34-26. How are you guys feel? What do you guys think about that? Derek?
I don't know if you guys saw this. Right now, we're the 6th seed. Which means we control our own destiny. Which means if we win, we are the 6th seed. We don't need help. It has already come out now that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to start for the Rams. In their game. So, and Green Bay is playing Detroit, correct? On Sunday Night Football.
Yep.
And Detroit is
No.
Detroit's playing Minnesota.
Detroit's playing Minnesota.
I think Green Bay's playing the Bears.
Yeah, they've got the Bears.
okay. Well, I guess at the end, Green Bay just played Detroit. Yeah. Well, regardless, we win the game. We're the 6th seed, and chances are we're playing. Why do they not have a 4 in here? If you look at the NFC standings, they don't have a 4 seed. Interesting. But
either at the Rams or at Tampa.
Right.
Yeah.
Tampa's
I don't
not even.
I don't know if there are any other possibilities, but right now, if the season ended today, we play the Rams out at SoFi. But I know it could also end up being Tampa. I don't know if there's any other possibilities besides those two. I just know I don't know. I'll throw this out there. I don't want to.
We lose, there is John. If we lose and Green Bay wins,
then we go to Philadelphia.
Then we would play at Philly.
Yeah. So I don't want to play Philly in the first round of the playoffs. I don't mind playing them in the second or the. I don't mind playing them later. I just don't want to. I don't want our first playoff game to be against Philadelphia. That's just my personal preference. I would rather, I think if we can play them later, if we can get through the first round, then it's kind of like found money. It's like we can play all out, take chances, be aggressive. We don't have anything to lose. But I think it's a little different if you're playing them in the first playoff game in a long while.
Agreed.
The last time we played Dallas, by the way, we didn't do so well. We were outscored in all but the first quarter. They sacked Jayden 4 times. They picked Jayden off twice. We couldn't get to Cooper Rush. We made him look pretty good. No turnovers from Cooper Rush.
We also gave up 2 kick returns for touchdowns.
Yes, a 99-yarder. Yeah. The last one, the 43-yarder, that was kind of in garbage time, but still.
Well, that was a failed onside attempt. But still, if you look at the scoreboard, it is a definitive 6-7 points. It is a fluky 7 points.
We fumbled twice. Bates and Eckler both fumbled. We got trucked on time of possession, which has not been our calling card this season. Which, by the way, we had over 40 minutes of time of possession against the Falcons, which is outstanding.
It's terrifying that we still gave up 30 points. That's freaking weird.
Here's the good news. Dallas has only won 2 of their 8 games at home in 2024 so far. They beat the Bucks, which is a good win, and they beat the Giants. But other than that, they've lost every single home game in 2024. That's the good news.
Well, the other thing is, as bad as we've thought the Cowboys were, and they have snuck their way into a 7-9 record. So it's not like they're in the contention for the number 1 overall pick anymore. You know what I mean? Like that was a real thing earlier this year. But
they are coming off a 41-7 shellacking in Philadelphia. I mean,
yeah,
Philly really took.
Yes.
I can't help it. Philly took out the Washington game on the Cowboys. I like playing.
Right.
I like playing teams the week before they play Dallas because if you do something bad to them, they take it out on the Cowboys.
How are you feeling about you don't have to make a prediction yet, Paul, but what are you thinking about the mindset going into Dallas?
So the one thing that has been running through my head this week in regards to the Dallas game is, number one, I'm happy that they clinched a playoff spot, but I'm happy that they're going into the game with the mentality that this is a meaningful game and our guys are going to play, and they're not even going to entertain the possibility of sitting guys out. Seeding does matter, and I think there is some value to getting that 6th seed over the 7th seed. But over and above that, what has been going through my head this week has been that I want to see an emphasis on the run game. We talked about it earlier. Jayden Daniels put himself in a few compromising positions this past week. I mean, he put everything on his shoulders, and I want to see the team really emphasize this week, giving him some support, getting that run game established, and going a little bit more ball control, I suppose, against Dallas. That's a big thing to me, and I think that should be something that is hopefully prioritized this week. That we get those backs going, that we provide them with some support and insulation, and have him go into the playoffs as healthy as possible and as confident as possible as well.
It's awesome that you point that out, Paul. It's kind of funny. I don't know if you guys saw this. I am thoroughly happy that we still have something to play for, because I being a Capitals fan for my entire life, understand what it's like to clinch early and then limp in. But the Eagles are resting the majority of their starters, including Saquon Barkley, who is 101 yards away from setting the single season rushing record for the NFL. So, like, that bye week kind of thing it can backfire. You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad these guys are going to be getting up, and I continue to say this every time we get on this podcast. We are ahead of schedule. Do not take this for granted. We need to treat this game as if we haven't clinched yet. We need to go into this game knowing it's still 1 of 17 and we still want a victory. And at the end of the day, it's still going to matter because it affects our long-term, goals. So I want Jayden, I want Brian Robinson, I want Terry McLaurin. I want all of these guys getting up for this game the same way they would as if we hadn't clinched yet. And people get hurt sometimes, knock on wood. I think the risk is worth the reward, where you don't lose the momentum. Because if you can roll into the playoffs riding, a 4-game winning streak, right? Am I counting my numbers right here?
Yep. We haven't lost in December, man.
Right.
We're not going to lose in December.
Yeah.
Saints, Eagles, Falcons, and then you beat Dallas in Dallas as you get ready to go into the playoffs. That matters to these guys, I think, and that confidence level and maintaining that intensity where you're getting up and still prepping the way that, you know what I mean, where you're not just going through the motions and then you have a week off, and I think it matters. So I want to see them come out.
He would mention momentum.
I think one of the challenges is, Paul, you were talking about ball control. It's hard to run ball control when you have a bunch of subs on your O-line. And, we had Lucas out. We had Lucas, I think, started the game. Quickly went out, got hurt. Biotic, Andrew Wiley is hurt. So that's 3 starters on the O-line, or I don't know, at least part-time starters. So I don't know. I hope we're going to get some of those guys back. And then we also got Brown, Dimey Brown, who's wasn't available. And Oz stepped up, but I don't know that you can count on that every single game. And then Lattimore is another big one, which I tend to think Lattimore they're going to sit on until the playoffs.
Yeah,
That just would seem to make sense.
Yeah, well, another one is Eckler. They activated Eckler's window today, but he's not likely to play. So he's another one that they'll probably ramp up in practice and do the similar things, but he'll be an inactive on Sunday, but he'll be back for the playoff.
But I'm really hoping to see Biotic out there, man, because I don't know how. I never saw what kind of injury he had. I think it might have been a groin, maybe. I'm not sure, but I hope that he's okay. Ankle.
They were well. Let me
maybe
put it this way.
My groin that was injured.
That he came back and that his ankle had been completely retaped. And so the assumption by the TV crew was that it was an ankle injury because they could see all the tape and stuff that had been redone on his ankle.
Yeah. I think we really missed him out there. But
now I also think the fact that we lost to Dallas the first time, I mean that they're not gonna overlook Dallas or take them lightly for this game.
Yep. I think that's
looks to me like all those guys you just mentioned were on today's injury report.
With DNPs too, right?
Yep. Yeah. Biotic did not practice. Deami Brown did not practice.
Crowder, but they also gave like 6 guys. 6 of them got non-injury related rest days.
Yeah, several of them are rest, right? John Allen is rest. Crowder, Zach Ertz, Dante Fowler, and Terry McLaurin. And it says ankle, non-injury, rest, which is kind of weird, right? I'm not sure how I take that. Biotic,
meaning if they were, I would assume that means that if he had an injury designation, but they gave him a rest day, but they still had to declare it, and he might have been a limited or you know what I mean, participant, but he still would have practiced.
McLaurin had you got me calling him McLaurin now, Bob. McLaurin,
sorry,
he had an ankle coming into this game, right? Am I wrong about that?
No, I think he did.
Maybe we need to consider that because. I mean, I was shocked at how massively he got shut down in that game. Maybe he just wasn't himself and that couldn't make the cuts that he normally makes. I hadn't thought about that.
Very possible.
Lucas and Wiley are both DNPs today with groin injuries, and Biotic is officially listed as an ankle DNP.
Yeah,
I knew somebody had a groin issue.
Yeah, both tackles.
All right.
So one other thing before we sign this thing off, I don't know. Do we even want to do predictions, guys?
You got to do predictions, man.
All right. Well, then before we get to the predictions, I will point out: have you guys looked at the Pro Bowl voting?
I know Jayden's number 3, I believe. Right? Is that right?
Pro Bowls get announced tomorrow. There's kind of a bit of a surprise that. Yes, Jayden is third amongst, I think, third in the NFC, not just quarterbacks, but third in the NFC, period. But the big one that jumped off the page at me is that Bobby Wagner, B-Wags, leads the NFC in voting as an inside linebacker. So there is going to be a legitimate representation of the Commanders at the Pro Bowl. Ideally, that's what should happen when you win 11 games, but I think Revo got number 2, who, by the way, congrats Revo for got engaged at the game after the dub. That was pretty cool.
Thank God she said yes, man.
I know. Could you imagine?
Yeah, after all that.
A little bit of pressure.
But there's a bunch of them, including, I think, Tyler Ott, our long snapper, is up there. I think he's either second or third. And Sanders still was number 6 as a corner. So he could find his way into the Pro Bowl conversation, which, I mean, the Pro Bowl doesn't really mean anything. Like, not to sound terrible, it's just a voting thing. It's not an all-pro situation, but it is still good to see some representation by our team. But anyways, all right, gentlemen, let's do some predictions. John, what do you think is going to happen?
Oh Lord.
I put you on the spot, and you have to MC the camera.
Dun, dun, dun.
He bumped himself right out of the.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
There he is. There he is.
There he is. He's back, baby.
Yeah.
I do think we're going to win. And I really go back to, I think it was Tony that said I don't know if we took them lightly the first time or it was just a bad combination of factors, but we're not going to take them lightly this time, regardless of what happened the first time. So we're going to go in there and we're going to, if they're really serious about nailing down that 6th seed, which I think they are, for the same reason, I don't think they want to play Philly in the first playoff game either. I think they want to have a good chance to win that first one. And I think it would be really tough to beat Philly again on the road in the playoffs. Not that it can't be done. So I think we'll win, and I think it'll be a relatively convincing win. I'm going to call it 31-14.
Ooh, that's a big one. Okay, all right, I'll take it. Tony, what do you got, brother?
Yeah, I think everything's on the line as far as getting the 6th seed. I don't think they're scared of the Eagles, but if you had your choice, you'd rather avoid them the first game. So I think that they're definitely going to go in for the 6th seed, and they'll rest someone who's like extremely vital and has an iffy injury like Lattimore. But otherwise, I think they'll mostly all play. And the Cowboys, I think if you get up on them, they'll pack it in the second half. I'm going to go 31-17. We get the W going away.
31-17.
And a lot of our
what you
fans
think,
will be
brother
there
man?
too.
Huh?
A lot of our fans will be there too with Dallas season over. I don't think
Mhm.
they're going to have a great showing among their fan base.
Paul, what do you think, brother man?
For me, the last week of the NFL season always comes down to motivation. Generally, the teams who have something to play for in the final week usually find themselves on the right end of the scoreboard, so to speak. And as we've already alluded to, we have a lot to play for. As a result of that, I think that we're going to go into Dallas and play a really clean game. I think we're going to be, focusing on proper execution, eliminating a lot of the mistakes that we had last week. And I'm expecting a really, really positive showing here. Dallas already has their mindset on, the offseason and who their next coach is going to be. So I can totally see that team mailing it in this week. I'm going to say Washington 30-16.
30-16. Sweet.
Mhm.
I'll go next. I don't think it's going to be as easy, but I do think we win. I think it's comfortable, but it's another division game. It's one that won't make sense because if it's supposed to make sense, it's not going to because it's the damn NFC East and it never does. But I think we end up winning it. Jayden probably only plays 2.5 quarters. I could see Mariota or even Hartman. It wouldn't shock me if Hartman is active for this game and he's the one that comes in to try to get him some reps if we have a good lead. I think final scores are going to end up being 27-17-ish. It's not going to be a blowout, I don't think. I think it's going to be a little more uncomfortable than fans like for the first half, and then I think we kind of distance ourselves a little bit in the second half and end it. All right, Bob, what do you got, brother? As the man behind the behind enemy lines, my friend, what do you got?
Maybe I should have told you guys this before you picked. CeeDee Lamb is out this week. Dallas has already ruled him out of the game. Not that it makes any difference. They made headlines yesterday, or maybe it was this morning, by cutting Zeke. Well, the official word is that was done so that Zeke would have a chance at maybe catching on with a running back needy team going to the playoffs. We'll see what happens there. But
Well, he cleared waivers and he's an unrestricted. He's a free agent.
yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
but that's fucking funny, man. Let's go ahead. It's okay to laugh.
Yeah.
I saw someone
Well,
make a joke saying they should cut Micah Parsons for the same reason. So he can make the playoffs.
There would be a record number of waiver claims.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he would find himself playing somewhere worse, like the Jets, right next to Fidarian Mathis and Jamie Davis, who are both now playing with the Jets. I don't know. I don't see Dallas playing for much this week. I mean, there's a certain level of professional pride, but these guys are all staring at an off season now, and this is the time of year guys get hurt and they don't want to be hurt. Washington's got something to play for. Dallas doesn't. I don't necessarily see like something wild and crazy like happened with Philadelphia last week, but Dallas didn't lose 41-7 all because Philadelphia is all of that in a bag of chips. They played some tough football against some tough teams. I think there was a certain level of I don't want to get hit. I don't want to get hurt this last weekend against Philadelphia. And there may be a certain level of that this week with us. That's pure speculation on my part, by the way. I haven't read anything. Obviously, they're not going to say that anywhere, but I'm thinking 28-13, and it's not as close as the score looks. It never really feels like we're out of control. I don't feel like the first game with Dallas was a representative game for this team this season. I feel like we were protecting Jayden, and maybe Jayden was protecting Jayden a little bit, and the offense never really clicked because of that until we absolutely positively had to have it in the fourth quarter. And then you kind of saw it kick into gear. I think maybe the whole team has learned their lesson about that now. Including Cliff Kingsbury and Jayden Daniels. And I don't think they try and protect anybody this weekend. I think they go out and play to win the football game. And if we go out and play to win this football game, not protect anybody, I don't think Dallas can play with us right now, especially considering the headliners that are not playing in Dallas at the moment due to injury and whatnot. So, yeah, 28-13.
Hey, Bob, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Why was that awesome?
I'm just giving you positive feedback. No, I think that was an awesome take.
Most of the time I talk too much, but thank you. I keep waiting for you nice guys to go, Bob, shut the hell up.
No, that would never happen. We would message you in the chat so that we don't put you on blast, brother. We got your back. To your point too, Bob, if we don't give up that kick return for a touchdown, I think it's a different game in the first time we play. It's one of those fluky bounces, that it's one of those fluky bounces that goes the other team's way, and then it seems like things just unravel. So, well, gentlemen, we are on the brink of a 12-win season. So, as we sign off, I will say, and we'll probably do this after the next game with a complete postseason wrap up, but the job Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, and all of these guys have done, I don't think it can go underappreciated. We went from 4 wins to potentially 12 in one off season.
With 61% roster turnover.
And apparently it was needed. And there's still stuff that needs to get fixed. I just don't know how we can fix it all in one. You know what I mean? Like, at some point, you run out of monopoly money. You can't keep buying hotels. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to do what you can and do it in phases. But this is crazy.
It's a topic for the off season, and we should probably chalk it up for that. But I don't think there's a perfect team in the league. I mean, even as strong as Detroit looks, there's still holes.
Their defense is
beat. We're doing really well.
So,
good point.
All right, gentlemen. Well, as always, it's been a pleasure. And of course, we have an interesting game coming up on Sunday, so it's going to be wild to watch. And it's been a hell of a fun ride, and I hope it continues at least for another 6 weeks, maybe. That would be awesome. But I'll just take it 1 week at a time.
Not enough strength and conditioning.
That's right. Absolutely not. So, gentlemen, as always, we'll sign this thing off the way we always do, and we'll say that'll do, pigs. That'll do.